Hello, and welcome to our online training videos for ProFace's Blue Open Studio Line Management Light SCADA software platform. In this session, we will focus on the Secure Viewer Thin Client installation, licensing, and also 3 different configuration options. Just a reminder, the Secure Viewer Remote Client is actually one of 2 options for remote viewing the Blue Open Studio Runtime application. Our goals for this training video are to understand the differences between the 2 different thin clients, understanding the thin client licensing, and understanding the benefits of using Secure Viewer, and also understand the 3 different configuration options for using Secure Viewer and the benefits that go with each one of those options. So one of the 2 options that we have for thin client solution is using Studio Mobile Access, or MA. In this case, when we use this option, we do not have to install any software at all on the client machine. It is operating system agnostic, meaning we can run on Windows, Android, iOS, or Linux, and basically it's all dependent on the browser configuration, which we are browser agnostic in that we can use any browser that supports the HTML5 technology. The second option is what we're talking about today, and that is the Secure Viewer Thin Client. It is required to run on a Windows operating system and is an executable that we will install onto that client machine. And that client is based on ActiveX technologies. So by default, when you install and license your Blue Open Studio Runtime, you will have access to 1 Secure Viewer client and 1 Studio Mobile or Mobile Access client, 1 simultaneous connection for each. To verify what your license is, you can go to your Start menu, scroll down to ProFace, then execute the BOS version 8.0 register utility. Verify your protection type, whether you're using a hard key or soft key, and then hit the button check. Now this will give you exactly what the license that you've purchased and what you currently have access to. If you want to change that license and increase from 1 Secure Viewer client to 4, you would hit change license, grab this site code, and then send that site code into your authorized ProFace distributor along with the part number for PFX BOS SV4 LV80. And once that is sent in, they will send back a site key. You place that site key in this utility and hit authorize, and that will increase your Secure Viewer license from 1 to 4. Because Secure Viewer is an application, you will need to run the Thin Client Setup installer to install the components for Secure Viewer. This installer can be found in the Blue Open Studio install DVD if purchased, or the installer can be located on your build time machine in the Program Files folder. So if I navigate to Program Files x86, because this is a 64-bit OS, and then I scroll down to ProFace, and then Blue Open Studio, and then in this Redist folder, you will find the Web Add-on Utilities. So I'm going to click into that, and then I'm going to open the Thin Client, and there it is, the Thin Client Setup executable. So if I go ahead and launch this, and I'm going to run this as an administrator, and we will go through and install the Web Studio Thin Client. And I can change the destination folder where I install that if I choose to, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave it default. And then I'll just click install. And once that's happened, I can just click finish. And then if I go to my start menu, all apps, scroll down to Proface, and then here you will see new. So that is the secure viewer, and then there is the secure viewer configuration utility. Those two pieces or two applications will be needed in order to use the secure viewer. All right, for secure viewer configuration option number 1, what we've done is taken the PC demo project that came with your Blue Open Studio install, and I've transferred that over to HMI, which happens to be an SP5000 with an open box and has a runtime license for Blue Open Studio. And then I've taken that same project that I just transferred over to this Blue Open Studio runtime HMI, and I've copied it over to what's going to be my secure viewer client machine. Okay, so the project, and I'll show you this in a second, but the project will be the same on both the runtime machine and this client machine in this option configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the secure viewer configuration utility. And with that, I'm going to configure the data server IP address to be the IP address of my runtime HMI. So that's going to be 192.168.0.27. All right, and then the TCP port is the default configuration of 1234. And if you go into your Blue Open Studio project, in the Communications tab, you can see that that port is configurable here. So if you do make a modification to this value, you want to make sure that you also use that when you configure your secure viewer client. All right, and then back to this. So for the URL, what I'm going to actually do is point to the project folder located on this client machine. So I'm going to hit the ellipse or my Project Explorer, and I'm going to go to my Documents folder. And what I've done is actually placed the project from the HMI. I copied it out to a USB stick, and then I've pasted it here on my Documents folder. But I've kept it out of the Blue Open Studio version 8.0 default project location just to make things more clear. Okay, so I'm going to launch into that PC demo application, and if you've seen this before, you can tell this is the entire project folder. So when you create a new project, you're going to have every one of these folders that are created to make up that project file. All right, so I'm going to select the pcdemo.app file, and I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to hit save. Should get a message here that says was saved correctly or successfully. If you don't get this message, then you may not have launched it as an administrator or give the proper rights to run the utility. Now I can keep this open or I can close it. It doesn't matter at this point, but I'm going to go ahead and launch the secure viewer application itself. And as I do, you can see the PC demo. For those of you that are familiar with this, the PC demo screens come up. Everything's activating correctly. You can see the data is moving back and forth and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and drag over. I'm actually remote desktop into my HMI, my SP5000, and this is the runtime machine running right now. And I'm actually going to go to the features, and I'm going to go to alarms. Just a quick way to show. We'll go that on both locations, and you can see that they are independent, so they are running asynchronous. And then I'm just going to go ahead and trigger an alarm here. Okay, and then I am on my secure viewer client machine, so I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge this alarm. And I'm just going to say client acknowledged. And you should see a message up here that says client acknowledged. Now if I go back to my runtime machine, you'll see that very same data. So client acknowledged, and it has been turned green because it has been an acknowledged alarm. So what we're actually doing, I'm going to go back to the slide here, is we're actually just passing the communication data back and forth. We're not passing any kind of graphics. We're not passing any of the screens. It's all just in the data. So the downside about using option number one is that if you do make a change to your runtime machine, say I want to change the button for home, or I want to make a modification to that project, I have to make sure that I also update that project on the client machine. It's simple to make this configuration, but it takes a little more work to maintain if you're going to make changes to the project. So that is Secure Viewer option number one. All right, for Secure Viewer configuration option number two, we're actually going to use Windows file sharing to share the project from the server to the client. So what we're going to actually do is I'm going to drag over my remote desktop over to my HMI. So again, SP5000 running Blue Open Studio on an OpenBox. And I'm going to create a new project here. Just going to say new, and I'm going to name it Secure Viewer. And I'm going to select the 1500 tag license, and we'll make that just an empty application. So with this, I'm going to create a new screen. I'm just going to simply drop some text on it, and I'm just going to call it main screen. Of course, you're going to do a lot more in your project. Okay. And then I'm going to go into the symbol library, and I'm going to go to the buttons folder, and I am going to select the shutdown button and place that on the screen. Just gives us a way to get out of the application or stop the application. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to save it as main. Go ahead and close that screen, close this screen, and I'm going to go up to our project folder, or our project icon here, and I'm going to publish that page. So I'm going to do save all as HTML. It does require to have the TCP/IP server module running or enabled, so it's going to go ahead and ask that, and I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. And then it's going to tell me that I haven't really added any security, so we suggest that you do that message. So I'm just going to skip past that for simplistic terms here. Okay, so that's really all I have to do to create a project. What I have to do to share that project is go into my Windows utility, Windows Explorer, go to Documents, go to my project folder where I saved that. I put it in the default folder, and then I right-click on that, and I go to Properties, the Sharing tab, and I click on the Share button. And I just go ahead and click share here. As you can see, now it's going to share this path. So I'm going to go ahead and hit done. Now I can copy this path, just highlight it, hit copy, and I can either put it on a notepad or a thumb drive or something like that to move it to my other clients I want to add this to. For right now, it's copied to my clipboard, so I'm just going to go ahead and drag this back over to my other monitor. And I'm going to go into my client machine here, and I'm going to go into the configuration utility, and I'm going to go ahead and place that URL that I just copied, but I need to add the project name. So project name is secureviewer.app. So I got to make sure I'm pointing to that app file. And now my data server is again my remote HMI, or my runtime server, and I'm going to add that IP address of 192.168.0.27. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now, one thing that's extremely critical is that you make sure that on the runtime machine that the project is running. If you try to execute Secure Viewer, connect with Secure Viewer without that project running, you're going to have a major problem. And the one thing that I've noticed here is that I did not set that screen. Okay, so it's very important to make sure that the project on the runtime machine is running. So I'm going to go ahead and fire that up. I'm going to drag this back over. And because I've got this saved already, I'm just going to go ahead and launch into our Secure Viewer application. And you can see there, that's the exact same screen that I see on my HMI. And if I hit the shutdown here, you'll notice that it just shuts down the Secure Viewer. It does not shut down the runtime. So with that, that is Secure Viewer configuration option number 2. So some of the pros about this is that your project folder is only located in one place. So if changes are made, you only have to make that in one place. The cons is that there is some advanced network configuration, some advanced setup, file sharing, and that kind of stuff that can sometimes cause problems. So again, Secure Viewer configuration option number 2. All right, for Secure Viewer configuration option number 3, we're going to take that same SP5000 open box. However, we're going to configure Microsoft Internet Information Services on it to serve the web pages that we've created in Blue Open Studio build time out to our Secure Viewer client machines. In this example here, I'm showing a local client, which is connected on a local network. And I'm also showing a remote client connected over the internet. Both solutions are optional, are available by using Microsoft Internet Information Services. So with using a web server, the project location is going to be, there's only going to be one location. There's only going to be one project. Whereas in option number 1, we talked about having a copy of the project on the local client. So in this case, there's one project. Secure Viewer can be used anywhere. As long as the network and the firewalls are configured to allow access, you could use this Secure Viewer client anywhere in the world or anywhere there's an internet connection. So the cons of using this solution is that there is some advanced configuration. You have to know a little bit about Microsoft Internet Information Services or Microsoft IIS, if that is the web server you use. You can also use an Apache web server as well, and there's some help documents in the help file, so feel free to read that. There might be some advanced network configuration or maybe possibly IT getting involved to configure this remote connectivity. So just walking through this, when you went through and installed Blue Open Studio, the mobile access runtime is an option that you can select to install. Now, if you do select to install it and you do not have Microsoft IIS enabled, you will get a message that says, in order to install this, you have to enable that first. If you skip past that and don't go and enable that, you can uncheck to not install mobile access runtime and install that at a later date. So you can click through and do that full installation. If you want to do it at a later date, then you can go and browse to, use your Windows Explorer and go to your Program Files x86, the Prophase folder, Blue Open Studio, the Redist, Web Add-on, and then there's an IIS folder. And in that folder will be the web or mobile access setup executable. So this is important to note where this location is, because you want to be able to copy this to, if you're going to use a runtime machine like the SP5000, you don't have to install the full Blue Open Studio installation files. You can copy this to a thumb drive and then go ahead and run this utility on the remote HMI. Okay, so a couple of things we have to do with the SP5000 to make sure it's configured to run IIS. So I'm going to quick log in over here. So I'm using remote desktop connection to log into my SP5000 so that I can show you how to configure this. So first and foremost, we have to make sure that the web service is actually running. So to do that, we go into our Windows services, and you can access that simply by typing services here, and you'll find that dialog or that executable will pop open. Or you can go to, let's go back, and we can go to Control Panel, and go to System. And then from System, you can go to administrative tools, and then administrative tools, you can go to the services shortcut, and it'll launch the same utility. In this utility, you want to make sure, I'm just going to expand this out a little bit, and then expand the first column and the second column. You want to scroll this down. If it's in alphabetical order, you'll scroll it down to make sure you find this World Wide Web publishing service. Now, by default in an SP5000, it is default disabled on PowerUp. So what you want to do is click on that. And if you double click it, you can actually go in and change the startup type to automatic. Now, by default, it's disabled. And in this case, I'm going to set it to automatic. Now, the other thing you want to make sure is that if you're using the SP5000, that the write filter is disabled, because you don't want the write filter enabled, because when you make that change, it will not keep on a power cycle. Okay, so here it says, do you want to enable the write filter? And of course, because I want to make that change, I hit no or cancel. All right, so that's the first thing you want to do. And when you do that, it's going to actually give you, or if you type in IIS at that point, you should get the Internet Information Services Manager. So if I launch into that, I take that back. I actually want to, at that point, so at this point, you'll actually want to go through and run that documents. I have it located here, but the mobile access setup utility. Now, when running this, now that I have this enabled, now that I have the web server IIS enabled, I actually have it installed already, but you can walk through this installation. And when you install that, what it's going to do is go in and configure a couple of things in IIS for us. So if I go into the IIS Configuration Manager, what you should see right out of the gate, under the default website, you should see BOSS 80. Okay. And if you open into that, you should see some folders in there, and there's also MA. So this will automatically configure and set you up to use mobile access if you do choose to do that client as well. So what we'll need to do, though, is we'll actually need to change the location of this default website. We'll do that by selecting default website here, and then we'll select basic settings. And where the physical path is by default pointed to the www root folder, what we're going to actually do is change that to point to our project folder. So in my case, I'm using the PC demo. And with that PC demo, I have it located in under users. Users, public, and then I have it in public documents and PC demo. Now, I didn't move this here. It was actually installed when I installed the software. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that project folder. I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to say OK again. And when you do that, you'll see now that the folders within this default website have expanded. So by expanding that, that means I have access via the web server to all the folders in my project file, my project folder. A couple other things that we're going to make sure we need to do. So first and foremost, there is a list of MIME types that we need to be configured, and this is in the help document. So I'm going to bring that over here and just show you that in the and if you go ahead and type in the index MIME, well, apparently that doesn't work. So we'll have to make sure that the listed MIME types are added to the application. In this case, we use a period star application/studio. So to do that, we just click add, and then you can put .star. So that'll say any MIME type that comes through that is unknown. Then we're going to put the type to be application/studio. Okay, and I already have this, so it's going to tell me that it already exists. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. So we have to make sure that we do that. And then there's one thing that we need to make sure that we do in order to give access to our project folder. So what we're going to do is go back to our Windows Explorer, and I'm going to browse to, I'm going to go to C:users, public documents, and then to my project demo, or my PC demo project folder. I'm going to right click that. I need to make sure I give permission to allow access to this folder. So I'm going to go down to properties. I'm going to go to the security tab. I want to make sure that I have iUser, IUSR, and I'm also going to add one more, and that is IISUSRS. So IIS users. So click OK to that. And apparently I have it wrong. So I want to make sure that I also add the IIS users. Once I click that, you'll see that they'll be added to the list that are allowed to see this folder. So go ahead and click apply. All right, so with that, I've configured our IIS to point, when I log in, to point to my project folder. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my client machine. So I'm going to slide this over. Also, one point to make that's absolutely critical is that when you want to go to browse to your HMI project, you got to make sure that that project is actually running. So I just went ahead and added and started that project. Okay. So what we're going to do now is go to our Secure Viewer configuration utility. And I'm going to put in the IP address of the HMI, which happens to be 192.168.0.27. And then I'm going to point it to the APP file. So it'll be pcdemo.app. Okay. And again, for the data server, we also want to point to that HMI server, 192.168.0.27. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And you can close this or you can leave it open. It doesn't affect it. And then I'm going to launch the Secure Viewer application. And so there you see that we are now running the application. Let me just drag this back over. So this again is the remote desktop connection to my SP5000 HMI. And you can see that I am running the project here. And I can change between the screens. And that does not affect my Secure Viewer connection. And I can do the same thing here. So there are three options that we've used to configure Secure Viewer client, a remote client, to remotely view your HMI project. Thanks for watching our video, and if you have any questions, let us know. Thanks.